What up, guys? The Bench Buddies are back this week. We'll be dropping lots of content this week on NFL and MLB, and obviously this video today, college football preview for this upcoming week. We got lots of good matchups here, as I have Ty with me again, joining me on this week's episode. So we're gonna just dive right into it here and look at last week's picks. I'll let you have the floor here since you beat me last week.
Yeah, a lot of games I wasn't super confident in. I ended up winning with Cincinnati, BYU, and actually Notre Dame. I wasn't super confident in that one, but I'd say probably my biggest surprise of the week was Michigan State coming out again and dominating. And it just looks like Miami might not have a great year after they were hyped up a lot in the preseason.
I agree with you there on Michigan State. They could be, kind of a sleeper Big Ten team after Ohio State lost a few weeks ago. That the Big Ten is kind of open for the taking right now. And, being undefeated right now, especially it's early in the season, but being undefeated right now is already proving pretty big because obviously State just entered the rankings at what, 21 or 20?
Something like 20, I think.
Michigan's already moved up to 19. Penn State's at 10. So the Big Ten is looking pretty good this year. And we will get right into our first week's game with a Big Ten team. You're going with Wisconsin here. I'm going with Notre Dame. I've kind of talked down on Notre Dame the last few weeks. I didn't think they were looking too good, but again and again, they've proven that they can somehow win games, and I don't know how they do it. But the quarterback, Jack Cohn, is actually from Wisconsin, and I think he's going to have a revenge game here. And it's also going to be a neutral field. So I think just playing those two things into account, that's why I'm going with Notre Dame here. But why are you going with Wisconsin?
Yeah, I think this is just going to come down to who can run the ball better. Neither team's quarterback can really throw the ball down the field that well. So I think it's going to be a really low-scoring game, which you can see in the over-under. But Notre Dame just hasn't really impressed me this year. And I think Wisconsin's just due for one of those Wisconsin games where they can just run the ball down your throat and control the game. And I think this is the perfect game to do it. So Wisconsin, I think, wins a low-scoring game.
Our second game here, also at 12 o'clock, a battle of the 2-1s in the SEC. For me, I'm going to Mississippi State. It's really a toss-up, but I just think LSU kind of had that fluke year where they won it all with Burrow and Chase and all them. So I just think that this LSU team is going to be overrated this year. And Mississippi State is a team to watch out for in the SEC coming into November and early October, just because, they could be a sleeper game just for Georgia, Alabama. Can't overlook them. But obviously, again, we disagree here, and I'm assuming you're going with LSU because they're at home.
Mostly, yeah. This one was tough. Mississippi State went in there last year and beat them on the road, which made it kind of difficult. But, yeah, playing at home, that's a tough place to play. And Mississippi State, with that loss last week, they didn't show me a whole lot. But I think it will be high scoring. I mean, it's Mike Leach, so they're going to come in and throw the ball basically every play. But I think LSU is going to win a close, high-scoring game.
Our next game here, we got Boston College, who's kind of a sleeper team right now. It's staying at 3-0, and Missouri coming in at 2-1. Missouri's favored, but both of us are going with Boston College here. Boston College, they got Michigan's ex-coordinator, Don Brown. So, their defense will be good for a year or two, and then it'll fall off. But the running game there at Boston College, I mean, they had AJ Dillon a few years ago, right? Was it AJ Dillon or?
Yeah, they've always had some good running backs.
So they have good running backs, and it's a team that runs first. So I think it would be under 59 for sure. And I just kind of think it's another one of those home games where you got to go with the home team here.
Yeah, Missouri is another team. I mean, they are in the SEC, but they're one of those bottom-tier SEC teams that just aren't that great. And being a MAC fan of Western Michigan, our rival Central Michigan actually hung right in with Missouri till the very end. So I think Boston College, being the home team here, is going to win this one. Just run it down their throat.
A battle of the undefeateds here. You got TCU and SMU. I think this will be a whoever has the ball last will win, and it will also be a back and forth, just who can score the most points as well. Obviously, we're both going with TCU here. I don't really know too much about SMU, but TCU, they're in the Big 12 still, and that's a tough conference to play in, and I think they just get this win here and move to 3-0 as they start to move into conference play.
Yeah, if you're looking for a break from the Notre Dame Wisconsin game, this might be the one to turn to. There's gonna be a lot of points in this game. You got a Big 12 defense in TCU, and then SMU has always been known the last few years for just putting up a lot of points and giving up a lot of points. TCU a 9-point favorite. That could be something that SMU covers, but we've been waiting for that big year out of TCU for a while after they had those few good years. So maybe this is the year. So I think they win this one.
And also another huge game going on at 12. You got Texas Tech going into Texas. I'll let you talk about Texas first here, and then I'll talk about my Texas Tech.
Yeah, well, Texas Tech's going to be looking for some revenge this year. They had a big lead last year, started doing that horns down, but they did it a little too early and blew the game at the end. So I think Texas might remember that, though, a little bit and have that on their minds. And this is a good bounce back game for them and a bit of a rivalry. Texas Tech, I just haven't really seen them win a big game in quite a few years. And I think that's going to continue here. I think they'll give up a lot of points.
So actually, this was kind of one of my harder games to pick, but I was looking at stats. And they're pretty much almost identical, except one stat stood out is that Texas gives up almost 100 more yards a game. And, in games that are just going to go back and forth, field position and yards matter. And I just can see Texas Tech winning it here late. But if not, if it isn't a close game late, I think Texas is gonna win by 2 touchdowns. So that's why I'm kind of just here on both sides. So I can really see either team winning here. But I'm just going to go with the upset. So another game that, people may overlook is this 7 versus 16 matchup. No one really saw Arkansas being this good this early. And Texas A&M loses their starting quarterback at the beginning of the year, and he's out for the rest of the year. So I'm assuming that's why you're going with Arkansas here. They're at home. But Texas A&M is favored, and they've shown me that they can battle through adversity. And this is their real first tough test going into Arkansas, and I think they'll come out with a victory.
Yeah, this one was just kind of a gut feeling for me. I've been really impressed with Arkansas so far. I think they're really well coached. And Texas A&M, we thought Colorado was their first big test. Turns out Colorado's not that great, and they actually really struggled with that game. So I don't know. I think Arkansas is one of those just flukier teams this year, like a Minnesota a few years ago that just gets hot and stays hot. And I think they're going to pull this one out just barely.
Another game, obviously, the last week we both took Pitt against your school. But this week we're both going with Western. And I'll let you talk about how Western did last week.
Yeah, my Broncos made me look bad picking against my own school when they win. I mean, that's a pretty bad look, but I was shocked, to say the least, about that game. I mean, going into Pitt, who was actually a pretty decent ACC team, and putting up 44 points on a Pat Narduzzi defense was pretty impressive. So only favored by 3 in this game against a solid Mountain West team, but I think they'll continue to put up points and they'll win the game. Stay hot.
One thing to note, though, about Western is they will be without Tim Lester this weekend. I didn't know if you knew that, but he tested positive for COVID.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
So, that could obviously be a pivotal role in here. They maybe won't be at 100% just without the head coach, but also they cannot miss a beat. So that's something to look for if you're going to be watching this game or following along. So, I don't know what to say about this team, if I'm being completely honest here. They can't really score, and I still don't understand how they're 9th in the nation, if we're being brutally honest here. And they're favored by 10, which, normally if you're talking about normal Clemson, this is like at least 20-point favorites here. But it's not normal Clemson. The defense is normal Clemson, but the offense is just, I don't know how to describe that and be nice. We're still going with Clemson here, but this is a game that, could be another upset watch. It could be close late, and not going Clemson's way. Do you have anything to say about this one?
Yeah, going on the road in the ACC never used to be a big deal for Clemson. They just run through everybody, but it's a big deal this year because they are not the usual Clemson. But I think this is just going to be another really ugly win for Clemson. I would definitely go with the under here. I'm thinking maybe 20-3 or something like that. I mean, their offense hasn't been great, but nobody's really scoring on their defense, so that's helping them. So I think they'll win another ugly game here.
All right, big game, I think, for Michigan here. I know they're favored by 20, but I don't think they'll win by 20. Rutgers has always tripped Michigan up, it feels like, for the last few years. Last year, one of their two wins was overtime against Rutgers, who, we're all like, oh, we'll blow them out, whatever. So this game could be a trap game for Michigan. I think they will still win, but I just think that 20-point, I would just take the Rutgers and the points here. Just because, Rutgers got off to a hot start and they haven't done that in forever. So they're just going to look to build off that.
Yeah, I agree completely. This is a huge trap game here. This is not the Rutgers team that we're used to. This is a solid team with a solid coach. And Michigan obviously goes to Madison next week, and they have just been needing that road win for so many years. So they might be looking ahead a little bit to that game and get off to a slow start against a pretty solid team here. But the running game, once again, should be the difference for Michigan, and they should run away with it late. Maybe a big throw from Cade McNamara for once here. But, yeah, I think 20 is a little too much in this one.
Another 3:30 game. We got a few good 3:30 games, so you'll have a good day of college football. Is Iowa State and Baylor. My gut was telling me Baylor here. Just for some reason, Baylor has been good in the past, but losing their head coach Matt Rule, and then they just kind of fell off last year. But they're 3-0 right now in the Big 12, and this could be a huge win for them at home against Iowa State. But I just think Matt Campbell and his squad will just do more than enough to get that victory against Baylor here. But I really don't know what to expect out of both these teams here. I don't know. Do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I was kind of leaning Baylor for a second here, but I just couldn't pull the trigger on them. I don't see them being a super strong team this year. But this is a big one for Iowa State. They always tend to get off to slow starts. So if they can get through this one, they could maybe get hot and still have one loss going into the Oklahoma game. So I think they will get off to a slow start, but they'll pull it off.
So about this one, I'm kind of surprised you're going Stanford here because I think UCLA is going to have a huge bounce back week. That loss last week, it was a trap game for them against Fresno State, potentially top 3 quarterback in the college football. They were 13th last week and then dropped all the way down to 24th, which I think is kind of too much of a drastic jump. But UCLA is going to get back to their old self here on the road against Stanford and win this game.
Yeah, this one can really go either way. That loss for UCLA last week is not what people think. Fresno State's actually a pretty solid team, but Stanford, I've just been, maybe it's some false hope, but all the past success they've had, I've just been waiting for them to put it all together again. And I think maybe this is the year after they went into USC and beat them. So I think they'll pull an upset here, win a close one, and I think UCLA is going to struggle to stop the run.
All right, for all of our Michigan State fans out there, you can get pretty excited. It's 3-0, beat Miami on the road in Miami. You got a tough Nebraska team, though, I still think. Scott Frost, he still knows how to coach. Like, people are, he's 2-2, Nebraska's terrible. It's Big Ten play now, and he's going to have a chip on his shoulder because they're 2-2, and not the record people thought they would be. But I think, Michigan State's hot right now. Mel Tucker's got them going in the right direction. And I expect Michigan State to be 4-0 and moving up in those rankings.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty surprised at that line. That seems pretty small for Michigan State, but it's your typical roller coaster Nebraska team. They lose to Illinois their first game, which seems like a horrible loss, and then all of a sudden they hang in till the end with Oklahoma, a top 5 team. So I guess you don't really know what you're going to get out of them. And the line, I guess they're maybe thinking Michigan State's going to have a bit of a letdown from last week, but I think they should win by 14 points at least in this one and continue to win games.
Yep. As a Michigan fan, would you bet Michigan State in the spread, though? That's the real question.
I probably would in this one. I like what I've seen out of them so far. It's going to be a fun one between Michigan and Michigan State this year.
Here's another game that's going to go unnoticed just because it's on the Big 12 network and ESPN Plus. You got a ranked team versus a non-ranked team, and the non-ranked team is favored by 6. That shows you how high they rate Oklahoma State here. It's at home. Both the teams are 3-0 in the Big 12, so this really could be a low-scoring game here. They're projecting, 46 for the over-unders. Pretty low scoring for a Big 12 game. But I think the Cowboys are just going to come out on top here, just strictly because it's at home. And I haven't really seen too much of Kansas State, and I didn't even know they were really that good this year.
That's just the usual theme with Kansas State. Everyone goes in with basically no expectations for them. And, last year they upset Oklahoma with Spencer Rattler, and this year all of a sudden they're ranked. So I wouldn't be surprised if they hang around in this game. Oklahoma State, I didn't think very highly of until last week when they got a big win in Boise against Boise State. So I think they will win this game, but Kansas State's going to put up a good fight.
So the game on ABC primetime here, you got West Virginia and Oklahoma. I think this could be a trap game for Oklahoma. I think that 17 points is a little too much here. I think Oklahoma will still win this game with Spencer Rattler, Heisman favorite. Obviously, if this game was flipped and at West Virginia, I don't think that Oklahoma line would be 17. I think it'd be more of a single digit number. But they're at home here. It is how it is, and I just think Oklahoma will win this game.
Yeah, I mean, Oklahoma hasn't really been winning convincingly so far. But I looked at their schedule, and it's honestly hard to find a game where they're going to trip up this year. The Big 12 is really weak so far, other than Iowa State, and they get them at home. So I think it'll be another game they win by about 10 to 14 points. Don't exactly dominate, but they'll just continue to win.
And for our last game this week, we got USC and Oregon State. Both these teams coming in at 2-1. USC won last week without their head coach, big. And Oregon State's an interesting team here because I feel like almost every year there's a random team in this conference that just is ranked, throughout the year. And I think it could be this Oregon State team if they pull off the upset here. But I'm going with USC just because I think it's the safe bet. And I just don't know too much about Oregon State, and I just think that USC team still has a lot to prove.
Yeah, I think Oregon State is very improved this year, but I actually think USC is going to win big in this one again. We got a new quarterback in who lit it up last week, new head coach that they're playing for. So I think they're going to stay hot and blow out Oregon State.
And that'll be it for the video today. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe on our videos. Go check out our older videos. We got NFL, MLB, and soon to be coming NBA videos. But for today, that'll be it. Thanks for watching. The Bench Buddies are out.
She never called back.